On this episode of Things That Matter, I'm interviewing Dr. Gerry Breshears of Western Seminary, and we are talking about theology, and we're talking about training men for ministry and all kinds of fun things. So stay tuned. Hi, and welcome to this episode of Things That Matter. It's great to be with you today, and I'm excited to have my guest today, Dr. Gerry Breshears, here with us. And Gerry is a professor of theology at Western Theological Seminary.
It's Western Seminary.
Western Seminary in Oregon.
Portland, Oregon.
Portland, Oregon.
Mm-hmm. Western Theological Seminary is in Holland, Michigan. Okay. So don't confuse Westerns.
Okay. Gerry, thanks for being here.
I'm glad to be here. This is such a delight.
Yeah, it's so good to have you.
Golly.
So we're in the middle of a conference right now, and you're actually one of our speakers at the conference.
I am.
But I thought I definitely was not going to let you get away without getting you in here to have a little bit of a conversation.
The whole Calvary network and just so exciting to see what's happening. Anyway, we missed Pastor Chuck.
Yeah.
Everybody got a chance to meet him. I mean, who didn't meet him?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But what a heritage he's left, and to celebrate that here together, it's awesome.
Yeah, great. Well, we're so glad you're with us. You know, I've traveled so many different places and met guys, you know, whether they're Baptist or Anglican or, you know, maybe Pentecostal or something, and they would share a story about Chuck. I was with a guy in London some time ago, and he's a well-known figure there in Anglicanism, and he said to me, he said, I don't know if you know this or not, he said, but in 1978, three friends of mine and we sat down for 6 hours with Chuck Smith, and we did. He said, I think he was like a 20-year-old at the time, you know, theological student, and I said, wow, no, I didn't know that, so it was pretty amazing. So, well, yeah, it's great to be together, and I wanted to talk to you today. Okay, so you're a professor at Western, obviously,
right.
But then you're also what is the other theological?
I'm the director I'm the chairman for the Center for Biblical and Theological Studies. We've got our three campuses in Portland, San Jose, and Sacramento. Okay. So I oversee all the Bible theology faculty development, recruiting, hiring, that sort of thing.
Great.
And
you're a busy guy.
Oh, I got to do something with my hours. I may do something fun.
So I thought it would be great if we could take a couple of minutes. I want to talk to you about a few things, but I thought maybe first of all, since this, you know, your world is that theological world, maybe we could talk about just, you know how, I don't have to explain this to you, but maybe to our audience, you know, theology kind of trickles down. I mean, you guys sort of do it up on this level, and then it ultimately gets down to the people in the pews, right? You know, through the pastors who are studying and, you know, reading your books and so forth. So as these, you know, trends come and go in the theological world, just like they do in any other realm, what are some encouraging trends or a encouraging trend that you see in theology right now, maybe?
One of the trends that I'm really excited about is that pastors are actually talking to each other and seeing the mission is to serve their cities. I mean, it kind of led by Tim Keller. Yeah. Up on our neck of the woods, the Plow team, Kevin Plow.
Right.
And so in Portland, we've got one of the places, and we're known as City Serve. And the point is to bring the different churches together, many denominations, many traditions, and come together to unify together to serve our city in the name of Jesus. Now, social gospel is serving the city.
Yeah.
Evangelist, it's come to my church and receive Jesus.
Right.
And we're kind of in between. We're taking the service to the community and doing it in the name of Jesus. And that it's a difficult thing because you want to leave Jesus at home because he's offensive. But that's why we're there.
Yeah, that's right.
So I just find that so exciting, and the reception we're getting in Portland, which is not a Christian city at all.
Not at all, right.
8% of the people are in church on a given Sunday, more or less. But the reception we're getting from all kinds of government and social agencies is amazing. Wow. And I love seeing that happen. And it's not just Portland that's happening, it's many others as well.
So the churches in the city are partnering together with a vision for the community.
We do prayer things together, but then we had the former mayor of Portland who really got himself in trouble. I mean, big time got himself in trouble. They brought him up on stage and prayed for him up in front. And this man is just weeping as these pastors are praying together for the man.
Amazing.
And what an incredible impact.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's an encouraging thing to me as well. And I think, there's always these polarizations, where you get, of course, historically you have that social gospel where they just said, let's leave the message of salvation behind and let's just get out there and, feed people and, help them in practical ways. And then the other side is, no, we don't want to do that. That's a social gospel. We're just going to hand out tracts and we're going to, do evangelistic efforts. But when you look in the scriptures themselves, it seems like Jesus, he joined both of those things together.
That's kind of my talk. Exactly that sort of thing. And how you do that and do it well. Yeah. And the big challenge is when you're out in the world, it's so hard to take Jesus because there's resistance there. Yeah. But you've got to do that. Yeah. And what we find is when we come to love and serve, people are okay with Jesus. In fact, they want to, now why are you doing this? Yeah, yeah. And we had in our church, we were out serving a school, we served several schools in our neighborhood out in Gresham, Oregon. And one of our elders works for the Gresham School District. And he was at a teacher training, he's a vice principal. And one of the guys was saying, there's this crazy church in the neighborhood and we can't figure out what in the world they're doing, but man, is it helpful. And Tim would just laugh. And, I know that church.
Oh, that's fantastic.
But see, that's the kind of reputation we want. Is we're doing it in the name of Jesus. We're a church, we're not a social agency. Yeah. But that taking Jesus out to the community and then, it's just amazing what happens. People come, they get saved, on fire. It's the way it should be.
Yeah, and like you referenced Keller earlier, Tim. And my son-in-law is actually on staff at Redeemer, and he said, he used the term mantra. Their mantra every Sunday is they make sure everybody knows Redeemer would not exist if it were not for the city. They're there for the city. Yep. And, this is kind of just a different approach for sure, maybe a newer approach, but it seems like it's something the Spirit's doing because it's catching all around the world. And it's not let's leave Jesus out and just go out and do social stuff. It's let's bring Jesus in, but let's bring him in creatively. Let's bring him in, with wisdom. And
the goal there very much, as we become more and more post-Christian, our civil religion, when I was a kid, was Christian everywhere. Sure. Even here in the West where it's less so. But the Catholic missionaries here in California, that was just there. But our society is becoming more and more pagan, more and more secular, and the underlying ethics of what we call liberal Christianity and the civil religion are breaking down. And there's a hole there. I mean, it's a huge hole left by the breakdown of family and the breakdown of entrepreneurship, those kind of things. I'd say the breakdown of the image of God. Yeah. Sure. And when we come back in the name of Jesus and demonstrate the image of God in action, not in railing against somebody, there's a hunger there. And that's what we're finding.
Yeah. It's almost like that idea that people are kind of, people are attracted to Jesus, but they're turned off by his followers sometimes.
Well, so we want to change that. We want to change that.
And that's kind of our fault. That's what we got to work on,
And that's where, unfortunately, we've got a hostile media that tells all the horror stories and very few of the transformation stories. But the word gets around.
Yeah, that's right. The word gets around. When you're out there in the community and it starts spreading word of mouth, whatever the media is saying, the people are going, well, that's not really the Christians that I've met. They're different.
That's the thing. You know anybody that's like that? Well, no, actually, the Christians I know are pretty decent people. Well.
yeah, great. Okay, so that's an encouraging trend. Anything concerned? And when I say in theology, of course, this is a broad spectrum, right? We know we have a liberal theology that obviously very concerned about that and have been for many years. But in more evangelical, people who have been Bible-based and Bible-oriented, are there any concerning trends there?
A trend that I find concerning is that we're getting more tribalism coming up, theological tribalism. So you've got your neo-reformed group that very tight, very inbred, very hostile toward those who aren't in that camp. You've got a certain group of Pentecostals that's similar kind of thing. We have the Spirit, you guys are the frozen chosen. And of course, there's heritage to that too.
Yeah.
But that tribalism that's happening, which is, I mean, that's happening in our nation right
Yeah.
now, and
Yes.
large extent to our world, and it's really unfortunate when that begins to happen
Yeah.
in the theological community, where we should be known for the unity that comes in Jesus, and we're breaking up, and the blogging that's happening,
Yeah.
just mean.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that meanness between Christians is deeply concerning to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't translate into a good witness to the world.
And some of that's coming with the progressive Christianity, which is moving away from historical Jesus, moving away from substitutionary atonement.
Yeah.
In that process, when you break down the word bound by the Spirit, there comes into you're wrong because you kind of stuff, and then a common ethic of Jesus that makes the difference.
Yeah. What would you say if say you're talking to people about that very thing? How do we counteract that? What's the remedy to that negative trend?
Well, a big thing together. We had a movement in Portland. It was a prayer movement. We just called it Northwest Prayer Ministry, and the idea was there to get all the pastors of a region together and just pray. And nothing else. 2 days prayer summit, we called it. And when you take all the areas out in my area of East Milton County, Gresham and such, all those pastors got together and they just prayed. That's all they did.
Yeah.
And amazing what a transformation that had.
Yeah.
We've been doing 7, which is a similar thing. You just get pastors together. And when pastors get together, and not just pastors, but leaders, and they just pray. It's amazing what happens. No theological discussions, no how big is your church, that kind of stuff. Just pray. And man, the heritage of it is amazing. I think that's a big thing. It's just
That's good, because I'm looking myself at that in our region here and just wondering, okay, and we've got some really good things happening, but at the same time, it's like, how can this even solidify more, So that's a great word on prayer. Now, shift gears a little bit.
Okay.
You, obviously, as a professor, you teach students. That's what you do.
I mess with their minds.
But I'm familiar with something you've done. It's called a cohort, where you've taken a handful of young guys, maybe a dozen guys or something, and you've done a couple of years of sort of discipleship, theological training with them. Tell us a little bit about the cohort.
What I do is I get a dozen people together, and that's, I try to have right at that number. Gets bigger than that, and you break down some of the relationships. But it runs 10 to 12. And we do a 2-year commitment to come in, and it's seminary level work. I mean, it's not the light. But we do it concentratedly. What model I'm using is 1 Friday a month for 2 years. So 24 get-togethers, and then a lot of stuff in between too. And to get into it, you can't be a beginner. You've got to really do some stuff. So, we've had quite a group involved there. John Mark Colmer, one of your friends, Evan Wickham is in it, and he'll finish up his thing with me here. Just in about 2 weeks, he'll do a spiritual warfare class, and it's these guys who they've got a lot under their belt. At least 5 years full-time ministry, and currently in full-time ministry. Usually paid in a church, but not always. And then we get together with that group, and what happens between these guys is just phenomenal. And I get to sit at the head of the table, or whoever is up there, and it's like refereeing a hockey game. You try to keep up with the puck. And it's just the transformation that happens.
That's great.
So one of the fun things is Evan, who's got quite a Calvary heritage, and then Dan Braga from Washington, who came out of the Mars Hill group, Acts 29, they're now getting together and planning a church. And I mean, how unlikely for these two to get together. And they're great, and those are the kinds of things that happen. So 2 years, hard study, but life transforming. It's just amazing.
Do you, you obviously recognize that, people are trained different ways.
Yes.
Right? So who's like a candidate in your mind? Like when are you hand picking people, or people come by recommendation?
Usually by recommendation. We don't advertise it. I mean, we don't hide it. But in the Western Seminary, we're a strong school, and we do all our normal kind of stuff to let people know we exist.
Yeah.
Which is amazing how many people live 5 blocks from the seminary and think we're a cult up on the hill. And well, Kellen was one of those. He grew up near us and thought we were a cult. So we have those kinds of things. But this is just word of mouth, and it's by recommendation. I mean, and if somebody fits that thing, get a hold of me. I'm the gatekeeper right now. But we're actually starting another one that'll be a 3-year program. It's not quite as high a level, but the same basic model.
Okay.
So it's a commitment for 3 years for this one. But instead of having one prof go through, it'll be a series of our profs. So we recognize there's a lot of people that are well down the pike in ministry. Our base classes are aimed for the engineering grad from Oregon State University who loves Jesus but doesn't have a lot of experience, and a lot of those too. These are the guys who've been down the way who realize, man, I don't know what I'm doing. Here we go. That's what we're about.
So my son, one of my sons is he's a candidate for your next cohort.
Char will.
He told me a while back. He said, "Hey, Dad, I got this opportunity, and what do you think?" And right when I heard about it, and Gerry, I had read the book that you and Mark Driscoll co-authored, the book on doctrine. I really enjoyed that book, and I had heard of you from some different sources. And when I heard about the possibility, I just said to him, I said, you need to do this. It's going to be good for you. And he's been in ministry, kind of many years, his whole life growing up in ministry, and he's a great pastor and a good Bible teacher as it is. But I think that this is just going to really be a blessing for him.
And it's we've got people from all kinds of different theological traditions in there, and just at that, there's a wide-reaching experience that happens. And I just love it. I just love it. So Char, he'll under my thumb.
All right. So one last thing. Books. You working on anything? You write anything new right now? Or
if God wills, I'll never write another book.
Is that right?
I've done it. John Mark Comer, his God Has a Name, for example. It started out in the cohort group. I took him through and showed him Exodus 34, 6, and 7. He was intrigued, made a whole sermon series that turned into a book. That's why I want to do books. I want to inspire guys like that.
to do that.
Jeff Van der Stelt, I've had a lot of impact, and a lot of these guys like that. But if God appears to me as a burning donkey in a bush and says, write a book.
You'll do it.
Maybe. But it would be Calminian theology, because it actually doesn't exist. And there are a lot of guys that believe God works in different ways with different people. So sometimes God does a Calvinist way, and some guys do the Arminian way, and sometimes it's something in between. And
seems like he's done that historically, right?
I think so. I really do. So that's what I do. But we'll see. I'm hoping not to. I get along better with my wife if I'm not writing a book.
I've got like 5 book projects on my desk that I just can't seem to. I just am attracted to reading books and not writing at this time. So I just say, I'll read this and forget writing that. So, Gerry, thank you so much for being on the broadcast. Thank you for being here at this conference.
I am excited for what's happening. I am just stoked to be a part of this process. And to be here as a guest, what better thing to do? It's just amazing.
Awesome. All right, great. All right. Well, thanks for joining us on this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Spread the word. We're out on all kinds of social media. And also there's a podcast. But anyway, till next time, God bless and keep you.